Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the sixth in the webinar series related to the Regia Marine Seismic Survey. The webinar today is going to cover the following things, and that is initially actually was to provide an opportunity for relevant persons to request content that we present here today at the webinar, and we invited those requests a couple of weeks ago in our newsletter. Unfortunately, there were no responses to those requests, so we've gone ahead and selected an agenda that we think would be suitable for most relevant persons as a sort of update to the project, our consultation, our environmental assessments, and our the updates to the activity itself. So we'll try and cover those matters in the agenda today. In addition to that, we'll also share some information that we've heard from our consultations undertaken over the last 4 to 6 weeks or so since our last webinar. And as people may know, the consultation process was extended for a further time through to the end of this year, based on feedback from relevant persons that the provision of the plan for public comment on NOPSEMA's website, if that were to occur at the same time as other environment plans in this region, that would be not looked favourably upon by the community. So we took the opportunity to further refine our activity and just carry on the normal process of narrowing what we are proposing to do, whilst letting those other environment plans and other activities proceed through the NOPSEMA process, with the intention that we will submit our environment plan for public comment in the new year. And I'll talk a little bit more about those next steps at on the final slide. So for those of you that are new to the Regia Marine Seismic Survey, just a quick update, which is that the Regia Marine Seismic Survey and seismic surveys generally are a technique used to explore and map the subsurface of the ocean floor, looking for petroleum deposits, in this case predominantly gas, down anywhere between sort of 2.5 to 3.5 kilometers beneath the seabed. And the image on the screen there shows that this area has been an oil, well, in this case actually a gas producing area for the eastern states for some time now, some 20 years plus. And on the red sort of polygons and outlines that you can see there, they are existing gas producing fields. And so the seismic survey is necessary to understand the potential for petroleum resources within an area, and the area of particular interest for us is this Victorian title that you can see in the outline red, which is a petroleum title issued by the National Offshore Petroleum Titles Administrator. And when you see the seismic survey outlay in a moment, the area that we're proposing to undertake seismic covers a large proportion of this of this petroleum title. Just some details on the activity. The earliest possible start date, as we see it at the moment, is the 1st of April 2024, with the latest possible finish of the 31st of December 2028. There will only be one survey, is our current plan, with a survey duration of operations on the water for no more than 90 days, and 60 days, or no more than 60 days of that will be acquisition, meaning discharge of the sound source for those 60 days. And those 60 days are not continuous, they'll be interspersed throughout that 90-day period. There's a lot of information on our website, which is www.regiamss.com.au, that talks more about what seismic surveys are, why we do them, and why in this area. So you can find that information out online. We'll start this webinar with the consultation status. So consultation for us started back on the 1st of February 2023. Where we look to identify relevant persons and begin the consultation process We now have over 500 relevant persons, which comprise authorities, organisations, and individuals with whom we are consulting with or trying to consult with. In many cases, we've received a number of items of feedback, either information provided to us that's central to our environmental assessments, or indeed objections and claims in relation to the proposed survey. And we really do thank those that have taken the time to be involved in what can be quite an onerous process for people that have participated in that. And we really appreciate people's time and attention that they've put forward. And we hope that we've been able to put measures in place that will address their concerns and minimise environmental impacts from this survey. We had extended consultation on 3 separate occasions, almost always in response to community requests for more time, or because we've needed to change or modify the survey in such a way that we believed we needed to give more time to people to fully consider the proposals that we're putting forward. And obviously, where those change, people are entitled to that time and the opportunity to engage with us. And as we sit here on the 12th of December, CGG believe that we have reached a point that we have sufficient information to be able to complete our environmental assessments. And so we are going through that completion process at the moment. And we're also believe we're in a position to conclude pre-submission consultation. So we have reached those thresholds, and if we haven't, we will reach them very, very shortly, with certainly pre-Christmas. For those who may be dialing into this webinar after the 12th of December, there is a further opportunity to voice concerns and provide information to CGG, and that is through a public comment period, and that is a process facilitated by NOPSEMA and will occur in the new year. We'll talk about the time frame for that in just a moment. Throughout the process from now onwards through to submission, through public comment, and indeed post acceptance, we really do encourage relevant persons to self-identify and come forward to engage in that consultation process. Having standing as a relevant person under the environment regulations does provide a very defined process that we have to follow. Which means your objections and claims can be heard and considered properly and assessed in the submission. And we really do encourage people to come forward prior to submission and take the opportunity that's available to them. This is actually a repeat of a slide that I presented at our last webinar. I think it's maybe 6 weeks ago or so now, maybe a touch longer. And so I won't go through all of the bullet points, but I did just want to highlight a couple of changes. One of those changes is an extension of the no discharge of the sound source within 10.3 kilometres of Dean or Lady Percy Julia Island. That range has now been extended to 18 kilometres. Not for any particular reason, actually. It's just that when we excluded the 50-metre contour, that is the distance that we were able to move away from that island, and so there will still be line turns within that area, and so the vessel movements as per normal vessel movements out on the ocean, but there'll be no discharge of the sound source within 18 kilometres of Dean Mar. So that's quite a near doubling of that protective measure there. And the second one to talk about is the no discharge of the sound source at full power within depths of water greater than, and it's now 200 metres, it was 400 metres. We've been looking at the survey design, and we believe that it's a commitment that we can make with the current design. There is a small amount of the area just on the southern margin of the acquisition area shown that goes into that 200 metre area, but in talking with some local fishermen, there was a lot of concern about any activities within that 200 to 400 metre contour. And so the first thing that we're able to do is to eliminate the sound source being discharged in that location. We're also considering whether operationally we can make commitments to limit our vessel activities in those areas, which is something we will try and minimise. And certainly the orientation of the survey lends itself to being able to do that. We're still just working through the actual requirements that will mean on the water before we can make any firm commitments there. So those are the sort of activity limitations. There's a number of pieces of information or correspondence we've received either through meetings or in writing, where we've been provided some further feedback that we have listened to, and given the time that we now have or have had through to Christmas and a public comment process in the new year, we've been able to take a little bit of extra time to address some of these concerns. So I'll just quickly talk through these. The first was we've heard that the way that we've assessed the principles of ecologically sustainable development, which we must be consistent with, has been done on a aspect by aspect basis rather than assessed holistically. And our initial position on that was, of course, if we do every aspect, then we have looked at ecologically sustainable development at each of the levels where the activity interacts with the environment. However, this feedback it has got some merit, and we do understand that the expectation from some people, particularly where it helps to align with other regulatory processes, are seeking an assessment of the principles of ecologically sustainable development at a more holistic level, looking at the entire activity and all of the things that we've done within our impact assessment, and the control measures we put in place to be precautionary, that should be assessed in one document more holistically. So that's a commitment we have made, and will now form part of our environment plan submission to NOPSEMA. Similarly, with that feedback came the feedback that aspect-led assessments, and what that means to us is that when we've done our impact and risk assessments, rather than look at southern right whales and then blue whales and rock lobsters and things, what is a normal approach for our industry is to do what's called aspect-led assessments, where we look at noise or sound or light rather, or invasive marine species, and we look at the cause-effect pathway that's created by the activity, and we assess the cause-effect pathway as a whole. And there's a number of different reasons for doing that. Most importantly among them is that it provides a much greater line of sight to control measures that limit that cause-effect pathway or minimize impacts as a result of those cause-effect pathways. So that's why we do it that way. But we do respect that other people or relevant persons may want to see information that's more familiar, formatted in a way that's more familiar from other regulatory processes. And those are our term for those is in key when we talk about key environmental matters or key environmental matters reports, where we would look at specific receptor groups where there's higher environmental value, for example, with southern rock lobsters, or with southern right whales or southern rock lobsters. And so we've taken that feedback on board, and we've made a decision with the extra time we've got available to prepare some key matters reports, key environmental matters reports, where we'll show our analysis in a different way. So very similar underpilling analysis, but we'll look at it more holistically from the receptor viewpoint rather than the aspect. We've heard a lot from people who we assume are not traditional owners, but they have espoused a concern that we are not addressing traditional owner values. And so we need to recognise that whilst it's obviously traditional owners that have the cultural connection to sea country, that other people in Australia are also concerned about how we are proposing to to protect sea country. And so what we've decided to do is actually implement a sea country protection program, which we announced at the last webinar. But we are now of a view that we want to provide an opportunity for traditional owners to co-design and co-implement that program, and to help with people's concerns associated with how we're designing that program. We're going to be very upfront and publish a short summary of what we believe that sea country protection program aims to achieve, and make it very clear to anybody who wants to well, first up, anybody who wants to be make themselves aware of what the program entails. It will be available to you, and for traditional owners specifically, an open invitation to engage in a co-design and co-implementation process with us on that program. We've also heard that our ALARP assessment, ALARP standing for as low as reasonably practicable, which is a key decision-making criteria under the regulations, and that the assessment that we've done is either opaque or should be clearer. And to be fair, all we have published at the moment, of course, is our control measures associated with each aspect. And so the feedback that people would like to see more from us around our decision making around this ALARP criteria is completely valid. And so what we have decided to do is prepare a detailed or a dedicated ALARP assessment report. Again, this is slightly unusual for industry, but from our perspective, we want to show that we're listening to the community and relevant persons in this regard. And so we'll prepare a separate ALARP assessment report that will be included in the environment plan. And that will show the consideration of how we weigh the cost, meaning the money, time and trouble of something, against the environmental benefit gained from adopting that measure. And that's essentially a cost-benefit analysis that we have to undertake. And we will do that and have been doing it for the last 6 weeks or so. And we will now publish the output of that assessment. We've also heard from some other folks through the relevant person consultation that there needs to be more confidence in the effectiveness of control measures. So at the moment, what we've published is a list of our control measures, again, associated by aspect. But there's been some feedback that people would like it to be more easily digestible as to exactly what we're doing to protect the environment, and how, what are the measures of effectiveness of those control measures. So how are we monitoring our own performance to make sure that those control measures are performing as we said they would. So again, our response at the moment is to prepare a dedicated report. Again, this is slightly abnormal, but we will prepare a dedicated report of our control measures and our environmental performance that we're proposing to put forward, and that will also be, as it needs to be, as part of the environment plan. But the way we're going to present that is slightly different to how we've presented that in the past. We're going to pull out some of the information into a separate report, so it's a bit more accessible for people, and provide a bit more detail where we can. The final slide for today is just about the public comment process. The similar slide was presented 6 weeks ago with some timeframes that almost as soon as we wrote it were redundant. So this is now with a clear caveat that these timeframes are subject to change. But the idea at the very least is that we are still just in the final throes of completing the consultation prior to submission. There's a few folks that we're still just talking with. We aim to have that wrapped up pre-Christmas. Then we'll take a break over the Christmas period and look to submit for the NOPSEMA completeness check sometime in the first week in January. Approximately the 3rd is our estimate. Everything being equal, NOPSEMA hopefully will then publish the Regia Marine Seismic Survey EP for public comment on the 10th of January. Or thereabouts, and there will be a 30-day period where relevant persons and other community members and the general public have the opportunity to provide information and comment on the environment plan and the Regia Marine Seismic Survey itself. So that's our current plan, and as I say, that is still subject to change, but based on finalising the consultation and any final changes that we need to make to the design of the activity pre-submission. With that, we'll end the webinar, and thank you very much for those of you who have attended, and look forward to any Q&A in just a moment. And for people that are dialing in maybe after the event, then please, if you have any questions that you'd like answered, please don't hesitate to reach out and contact us. Details are on the website that I mentioned, which is www.regiamss.com.au. Thanks all for listening. Goodbye.